Good morning. It's so good to be home. It's so good to be back home. I live in Ohio, actually, but please forgive me, but it's where my wife works, and so I got to hang out with her. Anyways, it is nice. I am retired, and that's for those of you who are retired, every day is today. So I don't make any plans, but I did get another job. Yeah, my boss is a Jewish carpenter, so. What I'm going to talk to you a little bit about, yep, there I am. I guess I better talk to you now. I'm going to start off with a Bible verse that means a lot to me. Jeremiah tells us, "For I know the plans I have for you, that declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, and plans to give you a hope and a future." And this is something that I hold on to. To me, this is the proof that God has my future already laid out, and all I have to do is be like the good Nike commercial and just do it. Trust him and just do it. Do what he says for me to do. The Bible that I use and all the quotations I'm going to give you today comes from the Life Application Study Bible. And I like that because it has a commentary built right on the page when you're dealing with verses. And you don't have to look to another source and things like that. It's right there. And what that tells me in my Bible on Jeremiah is part of this commentary of this verse is, this does not mean that we will be spared pain, suffering, or hardship, but God will see us through to a glorious conclusion. And this is what I want to talk to you today about. I want to tell you about how it is I came to be standing before you, because I have to tell you something. I shouldn't be here. Okay, I never died, but boy, did I come close to it. And I'm living proof that miracles do in fact happen. And I'm living proof to the power of prayer. I believe my story is a lot like the Apostle Paul's. Paul was very successful at what he was doing at the time, and you know what? So was I. I have enjoyed much, much success in my life. I had a rewarding and full 20-year career with the Air Force. I had an equally exciting career as a detective with the Sheriff's Office. I worked for the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. Not here in Michigan, down in North Carolina. I worked for the Wayne County, North Carolina. It was really cool because when I got down there, they wouldn't let me talk for 6 months because I talked funny. After that, I went back to work for the government, for the Department of Defense, and I had an enviable travel career. I traveled all over the United States, and in my job, I was a physical security specialist for the Department of the Commissary, which is the military grocery store. That's my wife works, and the last job assignment, as a matter of fact, I had with the commissary agency took me over to Germany, where I oversaw the security of over 45 different commissaries in 10 different countries and 6 different time zones. Yikes. I'd wake up in the middle of the night and say, where am I at? Why am I here? Where's the bathroom? Paul was very successful at his chosen career, and you know what? So was I. Neither one of us knew disappointment in our professional careers. And when I wasn't doing all that, I was very involved in church. From 1993 to 2001, I was a certified lay speaker for the United Methodist Church. Traveling preacher, if you would. It was kind of neat. I was a choir director. I was a handbell director, a youth choir director. I wrote and arranged music. I played in 4 different worship teams. I taught guitar. And I even produced with Shirley 2 outdoor Christian concerts while in Germany. It was called Praise in the Park. It was really neat. But once again, all I knew, everything I touched was success. By all accounts, I was enjoying a very full life. My biggest love, other than Shirley, was my ability to make and play music, especially my guitar. I really believe that defined who I was. I loved to play. For crying out loud, I had 12 of them. I loved playing my guitar. I loved my church life, and you know what? I could talk the talk with the best of them. I learned. I paid close attention while I was a student here. While I was a teenager here, I paid close attention to my mentors, and I could talk the talk with the best of them. While in Germany, I enjoyed the company of a guy by the name of Tony Taylor. We worked the security office together. Tony is my very good friend. And his wife, Kathy, and Shirley and I, we traveled all over Europe. We had a great time, and we really enjoyed ourselves. Another special person to Shirley and me is a young girl by the name of Emerald Payne. Now, Emerald, wow, that girl is nothing but talent. I met her while Shirley and I were volunteering at a local Christian club at Ramstein Air Base. And that's Emerald right there singing with me. Oh, actually, she's singing, I'm playing my guitar, at one of our Christian concerts, Praise in the Park. And she's currently very, very talented. She always has been. She always will be. One day, when she makes it in the big time, and she's a very strong Christian. Shirley and I enjoyed a parental relationship with her. In fact, she called us her spiritual parents. And one day, I'm going to be able to say, I played guitar for that girl. In June 2012, I returned to Germany because I'd been visiting the States. Shirley was living in the States. She took a job in the States. And I went to a family reunion down in Vermillion, Ohio. It's Lakewood Campground. It's an old Lutheran campground. And my whole family gathers there every year. And I spent my time alone in Germany working on some stuff. I'm an old folkie. I really love the old folk music and Arlo Guthrie stuff. And I'm actually doing there Arlo Guthrie's Highway in the Wind. It was the last song I sang that night. It's almost the last song I ever sang. And the real bad part about it is I sure wish I could remember that picture, because I don't remember anything about it. But anyways, I went back to Germany, and I was waiting to, because Shirley and I both worked for the commissary agency, but she was a store administrator. She worked in the grocery store and told people what to do. And my job was to travel around and tell people what was up with their security and things like that. And she was at Wright-Patterson, Ohio, and because of my job, there's only 4 places in the world I could go to, and Ohio wasn't one of them. So I was waiting for an expected assignment to Fort Lee, Virginia, by Richmond, where I was going to do my obligatory year and then retire. During June, and what I had planned when I retired, this is really cool, I was going to have my own coffee shop. Big dreams and cool beans. Can you imagine that? And I had a 60s style folk coffee shop. You know, you old folkies understand this. Over here, you get your coffee and you get your salads and you get your pastries and all that kind of good stuff. And back in the corner, we're going to have a sound stage for young kids that come up with strut their stuff. Wouldn't that be cool? And that's what I was going to call it. Big dreams and cool beans. So Shirley's in the States. Kathy's in the States visiting family. Tony and I, we were going to take Emerald out to dinner because on Monday, Emerald was going to come and she was going to audition for the Air Force's band. Now, previously, she had been with the Air Force's Tops in Blue, which is a traveling troupe that traveled all around Europe and Asia, and I coached her for her audition. And I had coached her for her audition to the Air Force band. And so she was getting ready to fly back to the States on Monday. This was Saturday, July 12th, and she's going to fly to the States. And, no, July 21st, excuse me, I'm sorry. And she's going to fly back to the States and have her audition for the Air Force. So that Saturday, July 21st, Tony and I took Emerald out to a local place that Tony and I liked going to, and we were going to have a dinner, and then we were going to an outdoor music festival. It had 10 different venues all around this big old lake. It was gorgeous. We loved it. And Shirley and I had been there for a few years, and Tony had been there 1 year, but Emerald had never gone, so we could give her a treat. So life is fantastic for me. It's going great. I'm having a great time. Of course, I miss my wife and everything, but I knew where I was going. I knew what was going to happen. My life is together. Then reality hit. I didn't really realize it, but I was on my own personal road to Damascus. Reality for me was an intoxicated driver driving at an estimated 80 to 120 miles an hour in a Mercedes-Benz C-Class, a tank, that hit my car just forward of the driver's door. I was driving a 2009 Ford Focus. Okay? Hit me just forward of the driver's door. And you see, if you take a look, the driver's door is peeled back. That's what it was. That's what he did to me. The rescue people didn't do that. They cut the roof off, and they took Tony's door off, but my door was peeled back, and I was laying outside the car. My car looks like it exploded, didn't it? And it did. If you saw all the pictures of the car, you would see that the hood is somewhere like 10 yards down the road. My motor My motor was knocked out of the car. That was 10 yards down the road. My wristwatch was across the street and down. Now, he hit me on my left side. My right wristwatch was found down the street. And I should have died. When I arrived at the hospital, I was in hemorrhagic shock and respiratory arrest. They had to flight me out. I suffered a total of 16 broken bones. Wow. This is the only thing that wasn't broken. My right tibia, my right fibula, okay, the shin bone and the bone next to it, the holes that gives you your balance, that holds everything. I had 2 breaks in my left femur, 2 breaks on my arm. My clavicle was broken. My shoulder was dislocated. They found it back in the middle of my back. 10 ribs. My sternum was broken. My left lung was deflated, and the right lung soon joined into the fun. When I got to meet the trauma room doctor that treated me. I had to go back to Germany for an insurance physical, and I got to meet the doctor that treated me. And the first thing he said, boy, you got no idea how glad I am to see you, because when I talked to the nurses, I got to meet the nurses, and I said, they recognized Shirley right off, but they didn't kind of, I said, don't remember me? And they kind of looked, I said, how about now? They said, oh yeah, you're the guy. So I really did that. Shirley said, would you please repress your personality? I said, it's okay, I take medicine for this. Yeah. When I met the doctor, though, he said he had never seen anybody with the severity of my injuries even survive the accident, let alone make it to the emergency room. And he was convinced that when he left on Saturday night, late Saturday night, because it happened in Germany around 7 o'clock in the evening, he was convinced that when he showed up for work on Monday that I'd be gone, that I'd be laying in the morgue. And he was so surprised and so impressed. And I said, well, you know, and he told me, I was surprised and impressed to find you here. I said, yeah, well, so am I. He told me that the doctor that came on the life flight helicopter that extracted me from the car said that my right shin was impaled on the gear shift selector. Wow. And 2 Americans just happened to be in the area, came by and put a tourniquet on my leg to stem the bleeding. Now, Shirley was in the States at the time when they called her and told her about my accident. And what they told her was, they said, if you're going to come, you better come, because he is in his last hour of life. They didn't expect me to survive the night. Well, she didn't get there till Monday morning, and the accident happened on Saturday night. But what she did do while waiting to fly was she hopped on the internet, and she got on my Facebook page, and my Facebook friends, friends of my Facebook friends, friends of the friends of my Facebook page. My cousin who lives in Indiana, he is good friends with Craig from the K-Love Morning Show. You know, Craig, Amy, and Kankelfritz. Well, he's good friends with Craig. I met Craig too. He told Craig about it. Craig got on the air, and of course, you know, K-Love. I used to listen to K-Love in Germany. So all over the world, Shirley and I have come to realize since this accident happened, and Shirley was very good about a blog. In fact, people keep telling me, you need to write a book about your experiences. Why? I laid there and slept. I did what I was told to do. Shirley put up with it all. She was running a store because her boss was gone, so she's running a store. She's taking care of a house. My brother and my daughter both had spent time in the hospital during that time. She's doing all those things, and then on top of all that, she's taking care of me. Yikes. There's your story. There's your book. So when you meet Shirley after church is over with, you need to shake her hand, look her straight in the peepers, and say, you need to write a book. Okay? Because there was countless millions of people praying for us. And I got to tell you something. When I get to heaven, I can't wait to thank them. I really can't. This could be so cool. I'm going to spend the majority of the first day just finding people thanking them. Hey, you prayed for me. Thank you very much. And in spite of all that, of that horror, I can tell you something. Jesus was with me. Now, I don't recall the accident. I really don't. I wish I did. Like I said, I don't recall singing to my family in June. All I recall is being at the intersection. I looked left, didn't see anything. I looked right, and as I was sweeping back, Emerald says, according to Emerald, because she was sitting in the back seat, I looked left again. There he was. I threw my hands up and boom. If you take a look at that picture, go back to that picture, Cheryl. Can you go back? Okay, well, don't worry about it. Down the road, okay, the road goes in a curve, and from that curve to the intersection where I was sitting takes, at the speed limit, which, there you go, which is 42 miles an hour. So look way down, and it curves to the left there, or to the right. It takes 12 seconds at the speed limit, 42 miles an hour, to get there. People in my car said he wasn't there. The next minute, boom, there he was. That's how they came up with the figure, 80 to 120 miles an hour. So when I first woke up in September, accident happened July 21st. I wake up in September. I thought, wow, I really did have this thought. I must have really been tired last night because I don't remember going to bed. I look over, and when I woke up, by the way, I had already had 8 surgeries. I received 130 units of blood. Now, give you a little perspective. I can truthfully say I'm fully 100% German now. No more is it just a matter of my heritage. I really am German because they changed out my blood supply an average of 8 times. Okay? That's how much 130 units of blood equals. Okay? So I wake up, nothing works, I can't move anything except my head, and I look over and there's a nurse sitting next to me. So I said, hey, you know. Nurse said, you've been in a severe traffic accident, but the good news is nobody died. So I said, well, where am I? You're at Walter Reed Army Medical Center in Maryland. Well, last night I was in Germany. How'd I get here? So I said, well, what day is it? He said, well, what day do you think it is? I said, well, accident happened July 21st, right? He said, yeah. I said, well, I knew it wasn't that day, but I had no clue. And I didn't have my glasses on, so I couldn't see anything. You know, everything was big. You know, you're all a big blur right now. I take my glasses off. And so I said, well, I don't know. I'll bite. How's July 22nd sound? He said, try September 5th. Yikes. Where'd all that time go? Because from my perspective, there it was. So the next morning, my long road to recovery begins. Shirley was there, and since then I've had 8 surgeries. I've had 4 more. One to insert a rod into my right tibia. The other one is to replace the rod in my left femur. And then I had a complication from the surgery to replace the rod in my left femur. And what that's called is called a seroma. Now, for those of us of the 60s and 70s generation, I couldn't resist when my doctor said, well, that's called a seroma. Now, I want you to imagine an air bubble on the side of your tire when it bursts, okay? And all that blood and fluid comes out, comes shooting out. So anyways, when he told me, he said, you got a seroma. The first thing I thought about, I couldn't believe it. It was just, boom, chicka, 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 my seroma. You shouldn't laugh because that just encourages me. That's okay, you can turn the car off now. Anyways, he lanced that. And what I want you to imagine is, when he lanced that, I want you to imagine a stream the size of a pencil forcibly shooting out my leg, because that's what it did. Because he said, if it had burst, oh man, it would have scared the living daylights out of you. But he lanced it, and boom, it shot out, and about 4 feet hit the wall and bounced off the wall. And I thought, wow, how cool is that? And then I started looking at it, and I had this thought. It's blood, and it's water. Now, remember I told you I was in law enforcement? I was in law enforcement total 26 years. I was a homicide investigator. Everybody I'd ever come across, I never came across anybody that was alive. They was already gone, okay? But one thing it gave meaning to me was, when I saw that blood and that water, I started thinking about the Roman soldier that pierced Jesus in the side, and blood and water came out. And I thought I knew my science, and I thought I knew my anatomy, but I had never had to deal with that with any of my people, with the people that I came across in my profession. And it really, really, it gave me a lot to think about that night. Anyways, it got me a trip to the operating room that night where they repaired it. They had to dissect my muscle all the way down and grime. Oh, it was terrible. Then they discovered I walked around like this because I have what's called radial nerve palsy. Now, radial nerve lets you do this, lets you do this, lets you do this, lets you do this. But most importantly to me was a radial nerve lets me play guitar. And I got told you're never going to play again. So what they did was they took and did a bunch of tendon transfers and all kinds of good stuff, and they gave me my hand back. And it's kind of neat because to do that, I got to tell my arm to do this. Isn't science wonderful? So the next morning, after I wake up, the long road to my recovery begins. And like I said, I've had 4 more surgeries. And but through it all, Jesus was with me. The surgery to install a rod in my right leg and replace the rod in my left leg, whew, for the first time, January 14th, 2013, I got to walk. I was finally able to stand up. Remember, the accident happened in July. This is January. I get to stand. You guys that are married, you know how good it is to stand up and be able to hug your wife? Because I couldn't do that. It's amazing the little things we've taken advantage. And surely not. Now, we got married 40 years ago right here. It was great. Now, I've also had to battle infections. Oh, my gosh, have I had infections. And blood clots in my legs, my left arm, my chest. I have swelling in both my legs. I have to wear those really cool granny compression socks. And if that wasn't enough, I had an allergic reaction to a medicine that they gave me to control restless leg syndrome. That's us at Walter Reed. Isn't that cool? We're in what's called the Peace Garden. Of all the things I don't remember at Walter Reed, because I don't. I had lots of people visit me, don't remember a thing about it. I do remember that picture. Isn't that cool? What a memory to have. Anyways, I had the surgery. I had the restless leg syndrome. They gave me some medicine to control the restless leg syndrome, which has an interesting side effect. I became totally unresponsive. I mean, now, from my perspective, I was doing everything they asked me to do. Everything. But they said, he's got that 1,000-yard stare going on, he's staring at the ceiling. Nothing. In fact, I even remember, I still have a strong memory of Shirley coming over and next to my bed, put her face right next to here. And she said, Dishy, don't do this to me. Now, that's highly personal. Nobody knows she calls me Dishy, so don't tell anybody, okay? But she said, Dishy, don't do this to me. I can feel that tear right there. And I still can to this day. I can feel that tear. And from my perspective, hey, I'm doing it, you know? Well, then things started going dark. They started going gray. And they started going dark. And I heard her call my brother Warren on the phone and said, Warren, I need you to come to the hospital. And I thought, as she's doing that, I'm thinking, you're dying. So, this is what it's like to die. And I'm going to share something with you folks. It's not bad. It really isn't bad. Lights went black. I heard Shirley from 100 yards away, very distant. He stopped breathing. Well, from my perspective, the next second, my chest is on fire. Now, remember, I was totally unresponsive. As far as they're concerned, I'm just laying there, you know, piece of meat. My chest is on fire, and I reach up and I grab the nurse's hand, and I said, you got to stop that because that hurts. She said, welcome back. It's supposed to hurt. They were doing a chest rub trying to get me to breathe because, see, she was waiting for my brother to show up. They were doing everything they could to stop waiting for my brother to show up because he had the instructions, do not resuscitate. So they were just killing time. That hurt. But you know what? Jesus was still with me. So next came the painful rehab. Oh yes, painful rehab. I got to go home finally though. Did I say the rehab was painful? Oh yes. But through it all, Jesus was still with me. Now, you remember when I started this testimony, I called this my road to Damascus. Remember that? I said I was really good at talking the talk. Now, I don't remember anything about my stays in the 2 hospitals in Germany. I was in 2 hospitals in Germany, then Walter Reed, and then I came to Ohio. And even though I remember waking up with Walter Reed, I just don't remember a lot about it. But I do remember a visit by my former pastor when we attended church in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Fran Cooper is her name. And while we were there, God revealed to me, you know what? You were really good at talking the talk. But you were horrible at walking that talk. You didn't walk that talk. People on the outside would be convinced I was the most pious Christian in the world. I could pray good, I could do good, everything. But it wasn't my life. I was not living the life that I was taught here to live. I talked to Fran about that. What'd Fran do? Well, being the good preacher that she is, let's go to God and let's talk about it. And we did. So I get asked by a lot of people, are you still in pain? Oh, you betcha. I'm in pain every day. Every day I hurt someplace. In fact, I actually look forward to getting a headache or something like that because it lets me concentrate on something else. And it is kind of neat, though, to lay in bed in the morning and know that, well, it's going to rain outside or it's cold outside because my implants just don't like that. But you learn to live with it. And I remember especially one time that really put this in perspective. Once again, K-Love. Shirley's going to work one morning and she calls me because I'm in a rehab center. I'm a patient. And she says, get your computer out, turn on K-Love. They had that K-Love's inspiration of the day. You know, you talk and you call and talk about what God did for you. And she said, you need to listen to this. Encouraging story of the day, that's what it is. And so I got my computer out, fired it up, turned on K-Love, and the guy was talking. I found out later it was actually Craig from Craig, Amy, and Kankelfritz talking about a situation he had where he was in the hospital and the doctor came in and had to move him from one bed to another, which they had to do for me quite often. And he said, there's no getting around it. This is going to hurt, and it's going to hurt bad. Don't be afraid of the pain. So that's become my mantra. I'm not afraid of the pain. I am very blessed in the fact that if it gets too bad to where I can't handle it, I say, Shirley, pass me a couple Tylenol. That's all I can take is Tylenol. I can't take Advil. I can't take ibuprofen. I won't take Vicodin or Percocet because I got to drive my car, you know. So I just take some Tylenol. The other side effect I have, and people wonder, well, why do you share this? This is awful personal, so you understand what you can go through. I suffer from awful depression. And not just feeling down, not the blues, it's my body. The doctors told me, you can expect, because of the fact that you had these major surgeries, you had severe trauma, you had all these things happen in your body, it's going to manifest itself into depression. Shirley asked me, well, what's wrong? Are you okay? I don't know, nothing's wrong. But I'm sitting here, you know, Three Stooges movie can make me cry sometimes. But that's what happens, okay? And it hits at the most inappropriate time. And once again, Jesus is still with me during that time. I face at least one more surgery. That's to replace my left shoulder. I have no rotator cuff, so I can't lift my arm any higher than this. And the doctor says, well, with the current technology, you need to wait a little bit till you're a little bit older because it only lasts 10 to 12 years. It's a one-time shot. I said, well, I'd still like to have it because my arm hurts. He said, yeah, but you're too young. You're only 61. That's cool. And then I have bone growing out of my femur into my thigh muscle, which is called heterotopic ossification. You get to learn a lot about medical terms when you get yourself whacked up so bad. They got to go back in and grind that down. So I've had many challenges, and of course, you've already heard me talk about it. My biggest challenge is learning to play the guitar again. I miss my guitar, okay? And I have accepted that, well, I will play again, believe it, okay? I will play again. I'll never be able to play to the ability that I played because I became a fingerstyle player. I would play melodies with my guitar and things like that, and I just don't have the dexterity in my hands. So now I play keyboard for my church worship team. And I was explaining to your piano player here. A keyboard player is not a piano player. It's you accompany the people. So it's, you know, if you expect me to do this kind of stuff, can't do it. But the important thing is I play for an audience of one. I play for the Father. And anybody else that just happens to be there, you're welcome to sit in and listen and join me if you'd like to, but I'm playing for the Father. And I can't sing like you used to, and it's a heartbreaker. I had many tubes stuffed down my throat and had a tracheotomy and all these things. So I can't, right now I'm back to making a joyful noise. But in spite of all that, it's still a vibrant part of who I am. I received a Christmas gift last year. It was really cool. Oh, yeah, that's my arm. Isn't that cool? Whew. That's my arm. That's when they're going to do the surgery. Anyways, I received a gift from a friend of mine and a former guitar student that said, the music is not in the guitar. And that's true. Music resides here. I tell people that I constantly have an orchestra going on in my head, and people with music persuasion that really take their music serious, things like that, or even those who just like music. But you can understand what I'm saying. I constantly hear music, and I tell people, look, it goes well with the voices. The best part about it is yes, the music is in me, and really the best part, and the true hero of this story is my wife, Shirley. And she has told me since the day I woke up, this is only temporary. And you know what? It is. It's only temporary. If not in this life, then when I get to heaven, I'm going to tell you something I firmly believe in my heart of hearts. When I get to heaven, I'm not going to recall any of this. I'm not going to recall the pain. I'm not going to recall the rehab, the problems associated with it, the things that I can no longer do that I used to be able to do. I'm not going to recall all that stuff. I'm going to be only happy. Now, I've had a couple pity parties, and the first time God told me, remember this, you got your miracle, you're alive, you're either going to get better or you're not, okay? But I want you to remember this. Noah had to build the ark. During the second pity party, God told me, the only thing he said was two words. Read Job. Now, you want to put your suffering in perspective? Read Job. Because I'll tell you what, and what I like about Job's got a happy ending. So I've been asked, did you ever ask God why this happened? Not once. I've never asked God why this happened, because guess what? I know why it happened. Alexander Seremenov chose to drive drunk, and he chose to drive at a high rate of speed and very reckless. That's why the accident happened. Free will. What I have asked is, okay, what now? What do you want me to do? And God said, you know what? You just get better, then we'll talk. So what I told people I was doing, I was getting used to my new normal. And I want you to remember that I just said that, okay, new normal. I was also reminded of something that once again, Shirley, that I used to always tell people when I was a cop. Quit crying about what you don't or can't have and start rejoicing in what you do have. Whew. I have a lot. Let me tell you something, I have a lot. So, and I want to be clear here that I don't personally believe that God decided to cause this accident. Hey, there's my friend Dave. I think I'll smack him down. I don't think that's what I don't have in common with Paul. I believe that God knew this accident was going to happen. I believe he allowed this accident to happen. And he chose to use the outcome of this accident for his glory. And you know what? I'm okay with that. So I kept asking God, what did he want me to do? I wound up retiring from my job with the government, hanging out of my house, and I read a book that someone gave me. Really good book, 90 Minutes in Heaven. It's coming out in a film this fall. They just finished filming on it. They just wrapped on it. And a guy by the name of Don Piper was in a car accident many, many years ago. He wound up getting killed in the car accident. He was dead for 90 minutes and then came back to life. Now, as a cop, as an investigator, I'm telling you, 90 minutes he was out. The injuries he had, he would have bled to death had his heart kept beating. Okay? But anyways, he went to heaven. I didn't. And I was mad about that. Believe it or not, I was mad about that. Because I wanted to go to heaven. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Shirley. I love my kids. I love my grandkids. I love my life. All these good things. And all those things I would have gladly traded to go to heaven. But God said, no, you're not ready to go to heaven. I'm going to tell you something, what I believe. If I die, and the first person I see is Jesus, I know I'm in for a good eternity. Yay. Okay? But if I die and the first thing I see is God, I know I'm in for a bad eternity because it means he's going to judge me. So, And what I was looking forward to most was I was meeting a guy that means the world to me. I love this man, and I love his wife. But instead, now they're going to meet me. And that's Bill Luke. Oh, that was me when I sang at our reunion a couple years ago. I sang a song that was inspired by Bill and Betty Luke called Look Around. Look around at the seeds that you have sown. See the harvest of your love. Anyways, oh, look at there. That's right here. I was standing right there. Isn't that cool? I thought I'd just throw that in there just for a smile. Hi, Don. That right there is a man that's largely responsible for the man you see in front of you right now, him and his wife. And they loved us so much, and I learned to play baseball from them. Anyways, I just happened to see that. But God had something he wanted me to do. That's why I had the opening Bible verse. So it took a long time for me to decide what I wanted to say for this testimony. I was struggling to put into words what I really learned through all this. And there's something that Jesus said in John chapter 9 brought clarity to my situation. But this happened so that the work of God might be displayed in his, or in this case, my life. The commentary from my Bible says that if God took suffering away whenever we asked, well, you know what? We would then follow him for comfort and convenience and not out of love and devotion. So what's the object lesson of my testimony? Well, first of all, I went to see Don Piper give his testimony, and while he was doing it, remember I told you this is the only thing that wasn't broken? I told that to the lady sitting next to me before he came up, and when he came up and talked, he says, and this is the only thing that wasn't broken. You think God was using that situation for me? But I heard Don talking, and I heard God in my heart tell me, this is what I want you to do. You can do this. So, well, one of my favorite hymns from back in the 70s was, Here I am, Lord. And Isaiah tells us, and I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send? Who will go for us? And I said, Send me, here I am. Well, guess what? Here I am. Once I woke up and I realized my situation, I had a no-kidding opportunity to evaluate my life. Surprisingly, believe it or not, my first attitude was that of gratefulness. I was alive. Okay? The support I received from Shirley and from so many others was so uplifting. As I laid there in my hospital bed, unable to move, I thought a lot about my life and how I was so great at talking the talk, but terrible at walking the walk. So hence, this was my realization that I was on my own road to Damascus. Dr. Charles Stanley spoke recently in a radio address that said, the incident on the road to Damascus destroyed Paul's pride. He suffered defeat, humiliation, pain, and embarrassment, which turned into the beginning of the best days of his life. And so it was with me. I experienced all those things, okay? But it became the beginning of the best days of my life. Oh, Paul still faced consequences of his journey on the road to Damascus, and so do I, okay? But listen to what Paul wrote in 2 Corinthians. My grace is sufficient for you. Wow. And yes, Father, your grace is sufficient for me. Now, we don't know for sure what Paul's particular thorn in his side was. You know, some say it was trouble seeing because of the scales in his eyes. I don't know what his problems were. It's really not important to me. But whatever affliction he suffered from, he found his purpose. And that's what I'm doing here. Whatever the challenges that I have, sometimes daily, I still find, here's the purpose. This is what God called me to do. Go out and tell people the good news. That I am a God of miracles, and these things happened so that my works can be displayed in your life. So that's why I want to do this. I have a deep desire to do this. I really want to do this. Some people ask me, well, why do you suppose God spared you and not somebody else? I don't know. That's not for me to say. That is not for me to say. What is for me to say is God is a God of miracles. And no matter what your affliction might be, no matter what your challenges might be, the thing is, what you have to choose is to say, I will trust you, that you know what's best for me, and you will use this for the greater good. One of my favorite songs when I first came out of out of my coma like that, one of the first songs I heard, because Shirley brought music into my room all the time, was Matt Redman, Blessed Be Your Name. He wrote that. He was having a bad day when he wrote that, believe it or not. Blessed be your name. I love that song. And from there, I've got my own personal pat little phrase, I will praise you in victory, I will praise you in defeat. It's one of my truths. Another one of my truths is Jesus through his Holy Spirit prays for us. According to Hebrews, he only knows what it is to suffer as a man, but he even now is able to save completely those who come to God through him, because he always lives to intercede. Shirley confessed to me early on that when she came to see me in the hospital and I was laying there so broken they didn't know that I was going to survive even the next day. Are you ready for this? She actually prayed to God that he would go ahead and take me. He's in such, even though I was in a coma and I was heavily medicated, you could still see that I was in such pain. She prayed for God to take me. Well, she's praying for me and Jesus is praying for me. I'll tell you, this is one time where we're both glad that God chose to answer Jesus' prayer with a yes and Shirley's prayer with, well, not yet. And I'm glad. So what have I personally learned from this experience? Well, first of all, God was not surprised by this event. We talked about that. God knew it was going to happen. Jesus prays for me. Well, I just talked about that. Jesus will help me go through this, and I'm growing every day. Every day I face challenges, and every day I find another reason. Let's figure out where we're going to go from here. He will see me through this and bring peace in the end. Well, I feel a lot of peace over this. It's really good. And then most importantly, what I said, this happened so that the work of God might be displayed in my life. So when I was recovering at the rehab center, my church in Germany sent me a poster that Shirley hung up on the wall. That was my focal point. Every morning I woke up and it said, I can do everything through him who gives me strength. Philippians. And since my accident, while I've had situations which I've hit the point where I'm just too weak or I'm just too human to handle it, I know Jesus will see me through. And once again, he makes promises. Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. Or how about, surely I will be with you always, even to the end of the earth. Pretty reassuring, isn't it? Just as God got the Apostle Paul's attention, he got my attention. Paul had many, many challenges after his encounter with Jesus. Well, at the end of the day, I really believe that Paul's going to say, you know what, it was worth it. I have challenges every day. You've heard me say that several times. I'm going to tell you something. At the end of my life, I'm going to be glad to say it was worth it. One last note about my pain. When Don Piper came out with the 10th anniversary issue, included in his book, among other letters, is a letter that I wrote to him that closes with, through your book, I felt God reassure me and remind me that no matter how bad my pain is, it was nothing compared to his son's agony for me. Shameless plug, he put me in his book. And thanks to the fact that Jesus did in fact die to forgive my sins, I'm able to forgive Alexander Saramnoff. No problem. No problem. Because you know what? You forgive people for their benefit, not for yours. And one day I sincerely hope to meet Alexander Saramnoff and tell him to his face, I forgive you. So my challenge to you is this. Don't just stand there and wait for tragedy to call out to Jesus. Know that he's there all the time. Just do it and do it today. I told Shirley that, I said, you would think that God would find a gentler way to get my attention. And she said, well, maybe he did. And you weren't listening. He had to hit you over the head with a 2x4, maybe use it a Mercedes-Benz. What happened to Tony and Emerald? Well, Tony is retired, living in Texas, having the time of his life, visiting his grandkids in California from time to time. We're going to see him next month. I haven't seen him since the accident, so I'm looking forward to that. Emerald, she made it to her audition for the Air Force Band, and she was selected for it. She traveled all over the United States with them. She just got out of the service last month. She's going to Berkeley College in Boston, where she's going to study music and theater. And once again, like I said, I can't wait to say to people, I used to play for her. But I'm going to leave you now with this verse. And I believe it ties in well with the verse from Jeremiah that I started with. And we know that in all things, God works for the good of those who love him and who have been called according to his purpose. Remember, people always say, well, God works the good in all things. All things for those who love him and are called according to his purpose. You've got to read the rest of the verse. So, what is God calling you to do? Thank you for having me here. It's so great to be back home. I enjoyed being here. I love being here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. God bless your socks off. Take care.